Thank you. Approve the agenda for the, I guess, for the entire day. Dorothy, thank you. Andrea, thank you. All in favor? Thank you. Thanks very much. Well, that's carried. I'm going to, I know there's a motion here, but I'm going to start with our moment of reflection, acknowledgement, and then come back to the motion. That's fine with everybody. So if we can take a moment for our reflection. Thank you very much. I'm going to read the Indigenous Acknowledgement Statement. We would like to begin our meeting by recognizing the First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples of Canada as traditional stewards of the land. The municipality is located within the boundary of Treaty 18, region of 1818, which is the traditional land of the Anishinaabe, Haudenosaunee, and Wyandot peoples. So we had a closed session for the morning, and some resolutions were passed in the closed session. So I would just like an open session to have a motion that the board approve all resolutions and recommendations made in closed session. Looking for a mover and seconder. Joanne, I see you moving. Dorothy, seconding. Any discussion? Oh, was that a discussion item, Andrea? No, okay, all in favor? Thank you. That is carried. There are a number of reports to be received as information. We have the action plan update for May. We have the CEO service update for May. We have the annual report, annual policy review, and we have the audited report for the 2021 statements. Can I get a mover and seconder to receive those 4 items? Gary moving. Seconder, Andrea seconding. It's a motion to receive, so I'll just call the question. All in favor? Great, passed. Thank you very much. That's carried. So the next item are the previous minutes.
No, she's out right now.
Are there any changes to the minutes? I have one small one at the beginning for clarity. It's in this section where I'm talking about Willie Wildman, who passed away. And I think it says that she was on the board in 1995. It is from 1995. She was on the board for several years. In fact, I think it was from 95 to 2017. See where I am, Sabrina, under call to order. So it should say from 1995 to 2017. I also had a question under the item F4.3. What you get there? This is regarding the strat plan, and I had asked that we send a thank you note to the supporters who were listed in the report. And I didn't see that in the minutes, and I do want to follow up on whether that was done as well.
I'm not sure if we have our manager of community engagement, but I know she has been in contact with people. So if those have not been completed, I most certainly will make sure those have been done now. But I believe we have been sending off thank yous and volunteer treated them as if they were volunteers as well. So they were part of our volunteer program last month.
Okay, good. Thank you very much. I see Mary's there. And does anyone else have any corrections to the minutes? Seeing none, can I have a motion that the board approve the board minutes of April 21, 2022 as amended? Mover, please. Dorothy. Seconder. Joanne, thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Lovely, thank you very much. That is carried. Is there any other business arising from the minutes? Seeing none, I don't think I need a motion then. Communications with the board. We have no deputations to my knowledge, correct? None, okay. There's nobody to provide public input to the agenda, and we have had no correspondence. Correct, okay, thank you. Then let's move on to section G, strategic plan updates and action items. And the first item is the action plan update for May. Now that we're in, oh, so wait for you to pull that up on the screen.
So the action plan report was submitted as a result of doing some work in the closed session. There were a few items that have been drafted for inclusion, and then this will be the last opportunity for the board to make any major changes, as this will now be approved as the 22 action plan for the year.
Can I just point out under OE 1.7, since you're on that page, there's also a fall board assembly that should get added. There's spring listed, should include fall. And as we see, we've added 2 items I can see on the screen at the moment. This comes from our earlier session: to complete an exit interview of the 2018-2022 board members, and that would be expected timing in November. Encourage eligible candidates to apply for the board membership in 2022-2026. That would also be in November, and provide an information session and website for potential board member candidates. That would be in November as well. Then we have, this is something I was, had to come up in discussion, not in our closed session, but in earlier discussions with Sabrina, is that we would add OE 2.18, update gap analysis for the Ellie Shore and CHD buildings for board and council information. And that's partly because there's been some progress made on that, and we did have a some work has been done on it, and the gap analysis that we did is now probably 3 years old. So it's worth getting that updated. And I think that would actually be another item to include in a legacy document. There is another item under, I think it's 4. Anyway, there's one about presenting the year in review to committee of council. I'm not sure where that is. There it is. Yeah. So that's another addition to this. And that is in fact something we already have booked with the council on the June 6th meeting. And those were the additions that I was aware of from recent discussions. I don't know if anybody else has any others. I did have one other question related to, we have a goal of presenting the strategic plan 22-26 to the community. And I don't know that we've had a discussion of when and how we would do that. I know it's physically going out in executive format to with the Blue Mountain Review, and we have presented it to council, and I know that is, of course, available to the community. Are we planning on doing a town hall or any other way of presenting it?
I didn't have any town halls scheduled, mostly because we're still not doing large events on site. At least the library staff are not. We are allowing others to do that, but that's not something that we're looking at, having large quantities of people in the gallery. We did do the presentation through council, so we can use our social media as well and link onto our website the council's live stream in case people would like to watch there. And then the June newsletter from the review will be having the actual print document going out to all households.
So that's basically our plan. Morris, I see your hand.
Just a question. Are you talking about the full document or some executive summary of it?
The executive summary is going out to all households. So it'll,
Because
again, that
I
11
would-
by 17 folded in half. 4
yeah,
page.
okay. Yeah. No, I was just a little concerned about every little detail that's in the thing. But if it's executive summary, that sounds good to me.
Yeah. The full version has been posted on the website, correct? Yes. So it's just the smaller version that's being mailed to everybody. So is that adequate in terms of presenting to the community, that the publication in a couple of different formats and then linking to the live stream of the presentation to council? Does everyone feel that's adequate? Okay. I'm seeing mostly nodding heads. Anyone see it's not adequate? Okay. Now I've seen everybody nod. Okay. In which case, this is now will be listed as complete. Okay. Any other discussion of the action plan for 2022? Okay. I'll be looking for a motion that the board approve the BMPL 2022 action plan. Mover, please, and seconder. Morris, moving. Seconder, Andrea. Thank you. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all in favor? Great, thank you very much. That motion is carried. The next item is the community hubs. And this is a verbal update on the Craigleith Heritage Depot renos.
So I'm sure if people have been driving by, they've been seeing less and less of the green membrane on top of the depot's roof as we move forward with the new roofing going on. It is a pretty close looking match to the more historic roof that you can still see on the turret. Obviously, from a longevity, the cedar shakes are fantastic, but the cost is just quite exorbitant. So we did move with a composite that is designed for the type of roof that we need with wind shear and those types of things. So it is looking very similar to what it should have with the cedar shake, but we know that we'll be having a nice lengthy roof life on the building. Outside of that, the sign is still up because there's more to come with the depot. The exterior of the building is going to be freshened with much of the rotten wood being replaced. There's going to be the new composite wood that will be around. We're not touching the turret in any areas other than potentially doing the sandblast and the repaint there. That is the area of the building that will be historic and untouched, which is, of course, the areas of the building that are the oldest are the ones that have held up the best. It's the new construction areas that we don't get more than a decade or two before you need to do some major work. They knew how to build these buildings in the 1800s. So it is exciting to see this work progressing.
Great. Thank you. Any questions? No? Okay. Then our next item is the CEO service update for May. It's back to you, Sabrina.
Okay, so we have, oh, I'm 2 pages too far. There we go. Our service update, again, we have our statistics. So you can see that we are working well into our numbers where we're doing better than we were in 21, which is to be assumed as we were in and out of sort of pandemic lockdowns and pieces like that. In 21, we did have, if you're looking at circulation, some significant bubbles of circulation, and those are not really norms for where we would have been, but I think people were just so trapped and looking for things to do that we were having larger numbers on circulation. And a lot of it had to do with people not being able to browse. So what many would do is ask for a hold, and instead of asking for the one book that they were going to read, they would browse by taking out 4 books, and then in the car, take a look at the back of the cover of it and drop 3 of them into the return bin and take the one that they wanted. So, you know, that was sort of our pandemic reality, that browsing was a more difficult process. So you do see those types of bubbles in there. Our digital circulation obviously is starting to come down a bit, but it's getting closer to a norm. We don't expect as many people, again, to be locked in and really feeling their only options were digital. We're going to have more people now using some of the print materials and having other options in their recreation. We are doing well with our gallery attendance. And again, it appears as if the gallery attendance virtual count is down. But now we have people actually attending in person. So not everybody feels the need to only see a digital number or a digital exhibit online. So we're going to start to see these shifts where when we're comparing month to month between the 2 years, you know, I think we're going to keep getting these bubbles of how do we compare 19 and 20? How do we compare 20 and 21? And now how do we compare 21 with 22? Even though we are still well in the pandemic in 22, the restrictions are where those differences are. But I certainly hope that will help people to see where we are. As you can see from last month, the bottom line there is looking at our volunteer hours. You can see that our volunteers are coming back into the building. They're more comfortable being here. Last month, we had 49 hours of volunteerism, and this month we're at 121 and a half hours. So we're starting to grow our volunteers again. Many people have chosen not to return, but we have a campaign to try to bring more people back into the library and the museum and the gallery opportunities. Outside of that, our COVID restrictions are fully lifted, outside of the fact that we are still requesting that everybody continue to wear a mask in the building. There is no legislative or bylaw to enforce that, but most people are complying and are really understanding that. We're also still asking people to do things like using the hand sanitizer, to practice some social distancing and physical distancing. And these are best practices that we don't think are going to change anytime soon. You know, once you've had COVID, you know that it will take you down. It's a tiring experience, and we don't want anyone in our community either catching that on site from others or having to go through those issues. So we're just trying to make sure that everybody stays safe. Outside of that, we have quite a number of our library programs returning to in-person, as well as our museum programs in person. We just did last weekend a hike outside. The rain held off for the morning for the Dorothy Chrysler Bird Walk. So that was an excellent opportunity of being outside together, but our programs are also resuming inside. So we're doing our seniors exercise again. We have our youth programs, small but still starting to come back to in person and in the building. From a community outreach, we did put out quite a number of volunteer thank yous and supported the larger town volunteer program. And we're currently in the process of bringing in 3 new summer students. One is going to be working with the depot, and that person will be focusing on the Blue Mountain Pottery Expo, new to the organization. And then 2 of our youth workers, who are not really youth anymore, they're both university students. They were pages for many years, and now they're returning to join us for the month back end of May, June, July, and August, and will be working here at Ellie Shore. If you're looking at our numbers, you can certainly see that we're having views still of our board meetings. April, there were 214 views on Facebook. So we know that people are looking and interested. Our YouTube views are also, quite high for numbers compared to other entertainment programming that we do. Obviously, they're not hitting those numbers. But if we look back in 2019, we had nobody attending. And in part, it's the time of day, which makes this accessible to anybody who would like to participate. And then in part, it's the fact that you can do this at any point. You can, pick another day in the week. You can do it in the evening. You can put it on while you're cooking dinner. There's no commitment in it, and you can sort of push through into the areas that maybe you want to see some points on and not have to sit for an entire 2 or 3 hour meeting. So from a transparency end, I do believe that we've really hit an opportunity for our community to be well aware of the types of things that are happening at the governance level. And I'm hoping that we'll be able to smooth out some of the hybrid meetings, because it's still quite difficult for those, especially those who are in the boardroom meeting, where there's the delay in sound and you're hearing the delay of that you're speaking coming over with the response time of others who are not on site. But those are all learning curves. Just like in 2020, we all had to learn how to do board meetings over Zoom. We'll start to learn how to do board meetings in a hybrid world. So those are the reports. Unless anyone has any questions, I'm available.
Any questions for Sabrina? Okay, seeing none, we'll move on to the next report, which is mine. It's very brief this time, because you've lived through what I spent a lot of my time doing over the last month, was working with Sabrina and staff on trying to organize this morning's discussion and methodology of the discussion. So that took a chunk of time. I also met with the mayor on May 4th to present the strategic plan, and also took the opportunity to thank him for his leadership in the new budget process that we started this year. And all in all, we had a meeting booked for an hour, and we spoke for an hour and a half. So I thought that was great. I thoroughly enjoyed the meeting. Also met with council. It was originally scheduled for May 10th and then got rescheduled to May 16th. And I made a deputation with Sabrina on the strategic plan. So that was accomplished actually just earlier this week. And we have a meeting booked with council on June 6th to present our year in review. And when we spoke with them earlier this week, we also mentioned this planning meeting, and thanks to a question from Andrea, and mentioned the board recruitment, and that we would be likely coming back to council with a proposal on how we might support their job in appointing the new board. So that's really all I had to say about my fun last month. Any questions? And seeing none, we can move on to the annual policy review. So you received lots of policies in advance with an opportunity to review them. And I know Sabrina's going to be pulling them up on the screen.
So our policy document, I can pull up the policies as well. It's just a little bit quicker to see them in the agenda. We have quite a number of policies that are our annual reviews. So we have some that we've said are annual, that there are recommendations to change, some that there are no recommendations to change, and then one new policy. So based on that, we weren't intending to go line by line. If anyone has a question on an item, I will just start to pull them up.
Did anyone have, oh, Morris, good.
Sorry. It seems to me I've read a lot of these various reports before in detail. I've got some notes here which I have to look at and just to remind me. In the policy 2018-46 and 48 and 2019-01, don't bother looking these up just yet. In one form or another, these reports use the word users. Now, I know what is meant, and so does every one of us, but it has a connotation with me that personally I'd like to see changed. Instead of the word users, change it to patrons for as a suggestion, or volunteers. I'm not sure. Patrons to me strikes a bell. It's throughout the various reports that I mentioned, and I hate to do this, but at the very end in 2018-56, the word construction is misspelled, I believe, but I couldn't see it too well on the heading. Have I lost everybody? Pardon?
We'll make that edit.
Yeah, you see what I did is construction, it is misspelled. Yeah, that was really, it's a personal thing. Not so much personal, but just generally, I don't like the use of the word users when something else is available. Do I have any support for that, or am I picking at small bones or this type of thing?
Actually, go ahead, Jesse. You're muted.
Horace, I was wondering whether the use of the word user in your mind connotes something having to do with drugs.
Of course.
Well, patron has a connotation of a payment.
I only suggested patrons, yeah. Yeah. I just suggested patrons. Well, I'm wide open to even the word, even extending it to library users.
I would be good with that.
Is that a difficult change to make, Sabrina? Because I know we substituted user throughout all the documents for patron.
Right. We used to have patron, and the comments at that point were that did have a connotation of financial exchange.
Yes. Okay.
We moved to user. We had library user at one point and changed those out because it's actually now GLAM users, because you could be using the gallery, you could be using the technology, you could be using services at the museum, but we can make that change and make it GLAM on there.
What about library services user?
Still isn't library if you're using services at CHD, or if you're participating in one of our like ACC Presents that is about the culture end of the gallery.
You could also say BMPL users, just
Yep.
using title. I'm just wondering whether it adds enough clarity to really go through all of that effort. So that's my question.
Well, to make it less of an effort, if Sabrina, if you'd note down number 46, 48, 01, that's a 2019-01, 2020.4 or whatever it is.
They're throughout all of our policies, Morris. So it would be not just these. We'd have to go through and the board would be making the notation that all 101 policies would be a review.
I certainly didn't mean for you to read.
It's not a difficult one. It's a quick search. We can find it and make those switch, but we would have to have the resolution that states that we're doing this across all of our policies as an amendment, and then we can do that.
Well, I'll be happy to make such a motion.
Okay, so we have moved by Morris. Can we get some wording that all references to users or users, singular plural, in our policy documents
Be changed to.
be edited to BMPL user or users.
Okay. So I have that all references to, in quotes, users, and the BMPL policy documents be edited to, in quotes, BMPL users.
Okay, does that capture your wording, Morris?
Yes, it does, very much so. Thank you.
Okay, may I have a seconder, please? I see Jesse seconding that. Okay, all in favor, hands up. Okay, any opposed? Yeah, me too, yeah. Okay, that's carried. Okie dokie. So into any specific policies, any discussion, questions, changes? No, seeing none. Okay. So then I would like a mover and seconder for the motion that this board, having completed the annual policy review, approve. We didn't make any, we have a number of verbs here. Which do we need, Sabrina?
In this case, it will be looking at the approving of the amendments of the items that were identified as amending, and then reauthorizing the others.
Okay, and then you will list those for us, since we don't need to do that now, do we?
No, they are in the agenda just above that.
Okay, so where it says approve amendments to blank, we'll end up with a list of policy names and reauthorize, and it'll include a list of the ones that are simply reauthorized. And nothing was received, purely received. Is that clear to everybody? An acceptable way of proceeding? Okay, so I'd be looking for a mover and seconder for that motion. Joanne? Seconder, please.
I'll say that.
Andrea, thank you.
Andrea.
All in favor? Great, that's carried. So now we just need to receive the strategic plan discussions as information. Mover, please. Thank you, Gary. A seconder? Dorothy? So all in favor of receiving the strat plan discussions as information? Great, thank you, that's carried. Other business, we are on to the financial report. So this would be the Q1 financial report. This is I must say, it's nice to see a report that I understand, with headings that make more sense, and everything about this is a lot clearer to me than the format that we had coming straight out of the town admin. because they're library-specific items now, not just part of the general reports.
So in this case, we have used all of the town's numbers. We're just reformatting it to be a bit cleaner of an appearance. The town is a bit behind on moving some of their reports into departmental. So I didn't want to be reporting a very large document that you would have to tease out the town's numbers. So this was the easiest way to proceed, but I certainly can continue to do this in the future if this is the direction that the board would like to see. I'm not sure if there's anything specific that you'd like me to pull out. A few numbers that I just wanted to point out to you, and that would be that we have our land reserve funds, which are our 2 GICs, are continuing to grow. One matured in May and is now rolling over again for another 18 months. And then our development charges, this is as of the December 31st auditing. Audits haven't been approved, but the numbers have been audited. So we're just over 2.3 million that is designated at this point for library expansions. So as we begin to talk about the need for East End Hub, as the town is referring to it at this point, and the library being involved in that, this is where these funds, for a good portion of it, would be coming from. So it is not a case of starting from scratch. We do have a fairly sizable nest egg sitting there waiting to be used. Outside of that, we have quite a number of reserves that we keep putting into and building. The gallery reserve is that which has been built by commission. We'll be doing some expenses this year. We have a reserve for CHD that's looking at our fundraising and our collection reserve. And we tend to start off higher in the beginning of the year and work some of those down as items become available. It's not something with the CHD, the museum, that you can really identify what you want to purchase, because they are archival and museum items. When they come on the market, they come on the market. So it's very important to have this type of reserve available to us, which is part of what this 6% will allow us to do, is continue to roll funds over and earmark into various areas. Outside of that, you can see that we should be right about the 25% for most items. So in most areas where we're kind of on target, some areas will be a bit higher because you simply receive everything at once or spend everything once. And some areas will be lower, again, because you won't go and make a purchase, maybe one large purchase, until September. But we are working within our budget, doing well. And it's nice to be able to see there's that autonomy for the board to be able to understand where we are and start to look at our reserves and our rollover needs.
Are there any questions for Sabrina? Morris?
Yes, Sabrina, by the way, I like this new format. I think it's much better than the ones we had before. Got a couple of questions for you, just basically for my benefit and for the benefit of the other members of the board. First of all, I'm only looking at the budget 2022 budget, I'm not questioning the figures at all in the year-to-date figures. Just along the budget lines, municipal grant at 1,204,000 is the 6% of the levy from last year?
It is actually the 6% levy from last year with the additional top up that was given for this
Whatever,
year.
yes, yeah,
Right,
I
to
remember
make that
that.
gap of new wages.
Okay, no problem. Tell me something. This is not your design, although you probably had a hand in it, but or was it the town's?
I'm sorry, I'm unsure what the question is.
Well, the reason I'm asking is why do you have, again, looking at budget, you have you list the expenses first at 1.234, followed by revenue of 1.411, And then you come back with expenses again, and then expenses again. Now, what are these bottom items? Why, can you explain to me again, perhaps I'm a little slow these days, and for the other board members, why they're split like that?
Okay, so the top expenses, which lists the staffing, administration,
Okay.
general operations, those are our operational dollars. So that
Okay.
is your general operations, and then revenue, which is out of that. Then the capital is looking at capital dollars, which are not built into that. And our strategic plan is considered a separate budget. And those are just using the town's numbers. I most definitely can embed them into one document if that's easier for you to look at. In the past, when we were reporting with council, that was the way the council approves their budgets. So it would be operational is one set of budget, capital is another set of budget. The strategic plan was its own process, which technically is listed in that neither operational nor capital, and then the revenues. So if I can package this in any way that makes the board's usability of the numbers more productive, it's going to be the same numbers. It'll just be a case of how you want to see it.
Well, I'm not a final expert in this. Like, to me, this says operationally, again, looking at the budget, never mind the other numbers, that you've budgeted 1 million for in revenue, 1 million two in expenses, which would theoretically throw up I won't call it profit, but an excess of revenue over expenses of $200,000. And then you have to take into consideration these other figures. If I had my druthers, and it's certainly up to you, Sabrina, because you are the expert in this, not me, is to embed those figures, even though they're capital. And if we're going to spend, we plan to spend 54,000 on books and 10,000 on equipment, etc. What's wrong with putting them up in the expenses, and similarly bring in the other expenses in the same thing? Is there something wrong with that? Doing it that way?
However you would like to see it.
Does it? Would it mean? Would it? But I got to caution you on this. Does it mean extra work on your behalf to be nice to me?
The stats and the data, the way it's presented, is the way it would be reported by council's finance department.
Yeah.
I can certainly embed those and adjust the figures. It would just mean that you're not comparing the percentages, embedding all of it together. So then we would be looking at the percentage of the 1.4 million versus the percentage of the 1.2 million, for example. But again, it's, 2 dimes and a nickel or a quarter. It's all the same information. It's all the same dollars. It's just which way is easiest for interpretation on your part.
Oh, okay. Well, personally, then, as far as when you've explained it, once you buy some books, it'll go against the 54.5 in budget, right?
Yes.
That's just another item. That's fine. Stay with it the way you have. It looks good, except for one other little comment. Did you entitle this report as the Consolidated Balance Variance Report?
It is. So the consolidated variance report is saying that it is the Ellie Shore and the CH.
Yeah, consolidated. I know that. Yeah. But
and the balance variance is saying what is your year to date against your budget and what is the variance of what is left.
Why didn't you just call it a Consolidated Variance Report?
I can refer to it whatever you would like it. Again,
well, the thing is, you throw in the word balance in there, and obviously I'm looking at this is not a balance sheet. Then it's actually an P&L statement, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yes, profit loss. Yes.
I'll leave it to you and Lori to figure out if I'm right or not. Thank you.
Okay. Any other comments or questions around the report? Okay. Seeing none on the Q1 financial report, can we move to the audited statement, please?
Okay, so again, just as a reminder to the board, We do not have a truly separate audit that we do. Our materials, our records are all held as part of the council's larger files, and the council audit occurs. And then what they do is they pull our department out of council. And I know we are not technically, legally, according to the Ministry of Department, but from an auditing standpoint, they pull that out. And then they provide us with the same summary audit sheet that would be present as if we had a separate audit. The process of doing an audit in that way means that we don't pay for all of the costs of an audit on our own. It would be significantly more if they had to pull every file and look, but because it's part of the larger council process, that's why we pay closer to a $3,000 mark for an audit. So we are required to have an audit given our size for the public library operating grant through the Ministry of Heritage, Tourist, Sport, and Culture Industries. That is something that once this is approved will be uploaded to our website as part of our annual report and also goes to the ministry. What the board chooses is how we do the audit. So my recommendation has always been that we approve council's auditor as our auditor, just as a cost savings, and not pay the larger rate if we don't need to. It does mean that you are still effectively selecting your auditor. You're just not making decisions on who the auditor is. So for that purpose, I have on here the receiving of the report, as well as, which we've already done earlier, as well as the approval of the audit. And then the third resolution there is the approval of TBM's auditor as the BMPL auditor. But it is 100% the board's decision on which way they go on that. Outside of that, the audit is present. It was a clean audit. As a non-for-profit, we expect to have certain items that are included in there about cash donations, which are found. Those are all very standard for organizations such as us. So I will take any questions if you have any.
Does anyone have any questions? Jesse.
Apropos of the choice of auditor, my question is there any reason that you can suggest, Sabrina, why we would require an independent auditor, that is to say, independent of the town auditor? I'm not aware of any. No,
I don't find it cost effective. The town is using a reputable source, KPMG. We've always gotten, responsiveness from the auditor on what we need. So there's no issues that I would see with our municipality taking care of the bulk of the big audit and then having our items pulled out. It meets all of our needs, and why pay $6,000 when we can pay $3,000?
Well, forget the cost for the moment. Aside from the cost, is there any reason why we would need an independent point of view, different, not necessarily different from, but independent of the auditor's opinions or comments regarding the town? I'm not aware of any.
No, we have a very strong relationship with the town. It's a positive relationship. That would be the only reason why you may choose to do something if there was a questionable relationship, but we work quite well together, and there's no concerns on my end.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions? My only question for you, Sabrina, is really the wording of the proposed motion, that we're actually approving the audit report of the BMPL financial statements, which includes the process as well as the statements.
Okay.
Okay.
So that this board approve the audit report?
Yes. The Blue Mountains Public Library Consolidated Financial Statements 2021, and direct the CEO to release the said audit as part of the annual report to the public. Can I have a mover and a seconder for that, please? Joanne, moving. Seconder. Looking for hand, Dorothy. Thank you. Any other discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor? That is carried. Thank you very much. And a second motion that the board approve the TBM auditor of 2022 as the Blue Mountains Public Library auditor. Can I have a mover, please? Gary, thank you. And Andrea, thank you. Any further discussion on this? Seeing none, all in favor? Great, that is carried. Thank you very much. Next on the agenda is the roundtable items. Sabrina, can I hand it over to you, please?
Certainly. I don't have anything to add on roundtable outside of the items that are on there for some of our library initiatives. We are doing our Ravenna pop-up. So that's something that we're hoping that our community will be interested in. Every 2 weeks at this point, we're going to be, we have the Ravenna Hall booked out. Currently, we're doing it for almost the whole day. We will not be doing it for 7 hours in the future to provide services there, but we're trying to give the community the opportunity to figure out what works for them and let us know. And at that point, then it'll be, 2 hours in the morning or 2 hours in the afternoon or the evening. While we're there, we're providing any services really that the community is looking for. So if you tell us that you have a Holtz here, we'll bring it with us so you can pick it up there. If you would like to renew cards or have tech help, those are things that we're doing as well. We have various presenters who will be coming in and doing short sessions along the way. We have one where Andrea, our curator, will be coming in and sort of doing a talk about the Ravenna Hall and some of the collections that are there. So we're hoping that our rural community members who have been asking for rural services will take those opportunities and participate in the sessions that we have. If the Friday every 2 weeks isn't working, then we hope that our community will speak to us and let us know, and we'll find better times. So from your end for the roundtable, if you know of anybody who is a rural community member who would like to do a stop in and see us and talk about anything, tomorrow is the next pop-up.
Great. Thank you. Any questions for Sabrina on that topic? Do you have other locations planned for pop-ups over this rest of this year?
We will be at other places sporadically, here and there. So we'll be at the farmers market once a month in June, July, August, and September. We'll be still doing a lot of our events. So when they do the salmon run next, the fall fair, those types of things. Ravenna Hall is where we're trying to focus the time as more of a standing item that tries to bridge some of that rural divide that community members were asking for. We're looking into having a more permanent holds pickup that can happen in that location. It won't be in 22, it would be part of a 23 budget discussion, but they refer to them as lockers, similar to the way your the rural mailbox system is, that you are given a number and you go to box 14 and your books will just be there on a certain day and you can grab those and return there as well. So really trying to see how we can serve the more rural community and to try to track where are the difference in asks in, nice weather versus winter weather. I'm assuming there'll be some changes, maybe more requests in the winter, possibly less requests in the winter. We don't know until we've kind of done a full year cycle of this.
Mm-hmm. Great. I think it's a great initiative. Any other roundtable items anyone wishes to share with the group? Okay, seeing none, can I have a motion to receive as information the roundtable discussions? Dorothy, thank you. Seconder? Morris, thank you. All in favor? Great, thank you very much. That's carried. Key messages update. Can you bring that up on the screen for us, please? Under the board planning day, can we give an indication of what we discussed? Because our main topics were development of key supporters. I'm just throwing out some words. We can probably add a bit more. The legacy document for the incoming board. And a board recruitment proposal for council, or for presentation to council. Do we need to add a little bit more information about any of those? So for example, the main topics were the development of key supporters who we could call on to advocate on behalf of library or particular, I don't know, locations or services. I'm not really quite sure how to put it. We could just leave it, or who would act as BMPL advocates?
Advocates, yes.
Maybe a legacy document to assist in orientation of the incoming board. And board. Do we need anything more to explain the board recruitment proposal?
Excuse me, I don't think you're supporting the board recruitment process. It's how the library can support the council in the board. Are you supporting council?
Yes.
Yeah, you are, yeah.
In their selection process.
It's actually, it's an it.
All right.
I don't think you need, don't need which will be presented in fall 22. It's a bit confusing what we'd be presenting then. So does that wording work for people? Yeah, okay.
excuse me, should we spell out exactly what amphipa means?
Probably.
I know it's a lot of words, but
Yeah.
it's certainly not something you drop into casual conversation.
What?
Maybe you do, Laurie, not me.
I had one other item that I was under the empowering services, and there's a reference to the volunteering, and I don't think it's clear. Wasn't clear to me until I read your report in greater detail, Sabrina. That's actually kind of people volunteering their skills, not their skills in different areas. So if you're a carpenter and you're willing to volunteer that skill to help somebody, then that's you kind of borrowing, in the sense of borrowing a library. You're a library of things. In this case, you're a library of people skills that you're prepared to offer to the community. When I first read this, I thought you were looking for volunteers to help with library stuff. In fact, so it's a different kind of resource.
We're very much looking to expand the definition of volunteers for BMPL. So a person who is willing to give, we had somebody as an example who was able to volunteer their time to help people who have very simple tax returns to do their tax returns for free. So it was a case where the materials were brought in, sealed envelopes. They then did it. We set up a Zoom meeting between the individual and this volunteer, and the volunteer then would go right through the process with them, so that all it had to be is submitted and done. So not all of our volunteers are people who are digitizing something at the museum or making a late phone call for a material at Ellie Shore. We're looking at a lot of opportunities. One thing that we're looking at right now that we're in the final steps of finalizing is creating a little library. So the little free libraries where you have, the little boxes around the community where people can pick up materials. We have materials that are discarded regularly that we don't want to put them into a landfill. They're in good shape. They just don't circulate. And you have to make room for new materials. And the only way to do that is to pass them on elsewhere. Partnering with BVO, who also gets many donated materials in, and building these boxes throughout the community. As a volunteer, we went to the high school, and their shop class is going to build them for us. So these high school students now are technically volunteers. They are going to volunteer how many hours of their time in shop class, and they're going to be able to build these, put their names on them if they choose, and these will be installed around the community as we continue to work through the process with council and parks and community services. Not 100% finished yet, but that's the direction it's moving, so that people can do these when they're out on a walk on the trail or in front of, maybe BVO wants to put one out, that it's just giveaway items. So those are the types of things we're looking at. People who come in and do a talk about art, and we don't normally think of them as volunteers, but they're giving of their time. It might not be a case where the person who's going to talk about how to build a deck is going to go to your home and build your deck, but they may be giving some kind of information here, whether it's one-on-one where they sit at a table and they'll talk to somebody who wants to pop in about deck work in the month of May when it's popular, or maybe they'll give a short talk and they'll talk about a few tips to the trade for, the 10 or 15 people that want to come in. So we really are thinking differently about volunteers. It's not just somebody who is making a phone call or reshelving our books. We're trying to really think more holistically on anybody who is willing to share their time with us.
I wonder if, I know they actually are volunteers you're looking for, but I'm wondering if the labeling isn't quite right. I wonder if it's like, library of skills, the library of people, but it's kind of part of the, a different kind of library that you're looking for. Any other questions or additions or changes to the key messages? The audit. Good point. Anything, I'll let you word that. I don't think that's a difficult one to pull together. Any other comments or things that we should be adding to the key messages this month? Okay, I see none. In which case, I'd like to ask for a mover and seconder that we approve the release of the key messages update May 2022 as amended. Joanne, a seconder, please. Andrea, thank you. Any other discussion? All in favor? Great, thank you very much. That's carried. So our next meeting, regularly scheduled meeting, is on June 16th at 2 o'clock. I expect it will be a bit shorter than today's. And other than that, I think we are ready to adjourn. And let me just say thank you once again for sticking with what was a very long and somewhat complex kind of agenda for us today. So thanks very much.
Thank you, Lori. Great meeting.
Thank you.
Thanks, Jesse. Appreciate that. So I'm going to move that we adjourn the meeting, and it is 3:06.